All right, I'm with my man Sleepy. We're gonna discuss Wheel of Time episodes 1 through 4. I mean, this dude knows everything about Wheel of Time. He's from the podcast just posted. Lord knows I did not know any of this artist. This brother knew all this stuff. And as we go on this journey of going through Wheel of Time, you will be like, I did not know this brother knew all this stuff. So, Sleepy, thank you for joining me on this these reviews, man.
No, hey, thank you for having me, man. Thank you.
So let's start.
Um,
How did you even get into the book Wheel of Time? Like, what is the? How does that even come about? Because the book's been
man,
out since we were like what 12 or 13, right?
I don't even know when the first book came out, honestly, truthfully, but I didn't get my hands on it till about I was in high school, so it was '96 is when I
Okay.
got my hands on it. So it was out before then, but I got
How
my
did you
hand on
even?
it.
How did you? Who put you on? Like, how did you even get directed to it?
So a brief history before I get into this. I'm not. I mean, I'm 100% a black nerd. I'm a blood.
I mean, you
I
on
wasn't
this
all.
channel. We already know. You on the. It's the Lando Calrissian experience. You people know.
So I was always kind of nerd adjacent, even before I got into fantasy. I used to collect like couldn't really get to a comic book store, but they sold the comic book cards at like Walmart and
Yeah,
Venture and
it's about
Target.
the Marvel joints, the
The Marvel
Marvel joint.
cards, yeah, and then of course cartoons, He-Man, Transformers, GI Joe. When I got to sixth grade, I had transitioned from in St. Louis. We had the DSEG program. So previous to sixth grade, I went to St. Louis public schools, and then they put my mother decided to put me into a county school. So I got bused. I would catch the bus every day at like 6:15 in the morning. Um, so anyway, that was a really tough transition for me. Um, I wasn't rich like the white kids, and I was trying to be hood anymore. So I was kind of
You caught in
caught,
the middle.
and folks was testing me. Some black people, because you the new black dude, and they've been going to school together since first, second grade. So I'm the outsider, and then white folks too. So sixth grade, I stayed in school suspension a lot. I had a horrible mouth. I would try my best to like not let it come out, but it would come out, and I didn't have a problem with throwing hands either. So sixth grade, stayed in trouble. A teacher named Mr. Washington was on my ass because I would finish my work because I was never a dumb kid, but I would finish my work and then I would be kind of a clown. I was always kind of goofy. So he was like, "You done with your work? Here go some books." It was just a bunch of random books. Like Shane was a book. That's a Western. It's
Yeah,
just
Shane,
a bunch of
the old Western movie. If people seen
yeah.
Shane.
It's just a whole bunch of books. And the book that I chose was oh my God, it's Terry Brooks. The Sword of Shannara was the first fantasy thing I ever read. And I fell in love with fantasy. I always kind of liked fantasy a little bit because of like Greek mythology and things like that. But like I read that book and I ended up reading that whole series. So Terry Brooks was what opened the door for me. And then I read like the Bulgariad, I read Narnia. So I just started getting into fantasy. And I had ample time to read these books because I was catching a bus at 6:15 in the morning.
And people understand we ain't got we come from the back in the day when no cell phones hit the wood. Like literally, you could read a book and get it through 2 or 3 chapters by the time you get to school.
And I really wasn't trying to get in no trouble. I was already in a bunch of trouble. So the books was kind of my escape, especially living in the hood. I lived in public housing. Um, I came from the projects. So like that was an escape for me. Honestly, truthfully, it was an escape. So anyway, I get to high school and I've read a whole bunch of fantasy, and some I liked, some I didn't, but I had read a bunch. And this guy, white gentleman named Benjamin Rome. If you ever see this, Ben, I haven't talked to you in years, like since like sophomore year of high school. But hey, I appreciate you. Ben always had this big ass fucking book with him. Like these books is big. And I'm at 15, I'm like, what is this? It looked like they look like Bibles. And he always had the hardback version, and he had made book covers to protect them. So he took the paper and made a
Oh,
little book cover.
so he took his book covers that was supposed to go for his school books and moved them over to these books.
Yeah, yeah. And and he's like, oh man, you wouldn't, he was a nerd. And he really wasn't used to really interacting with black people for real, but he was a nerd. And he was surprised I even asked. He was like, oh, you wouldn't want to read this. And I'm like, no, bro, what is it? And he's like, well, it's a book called The Eye of the World. Actually, he was on like book 5, but he's like, the first book is The Eye of the World. Well, I might be exaggerating, maybe book 3, but he was
He
past
was
this
ahead
book.
of you though. He was ahead of way
Yeah,
ahead.
he was way ahead of me. And I'm like, yo, what is it about? What's going on? And he's like, no, you're not gonna like it. And I'm like, no, chill out. And I started naming some of the books that I had read. I'm like, man, I've read the Bulgarian, I've read the Malorian, I've read the Silmarillion. I'm like going, he's like, oh, those are some hard books. And I'm like, yeah, man, like if I could read Tolkien, he made up his own language. Like, let me holler at this. So it took some convincing because he didn't really know me. We had a geology class together, so he didn't really even know me for real. But I'm persistent. I'm like, bro, I'm broke. I can't afford this book. You got the book. Let me hold the book. And he was like, I'm not letting you hold the book. So one day he showed up with like a softback version. I guess he went to Barnes and Nobles or whatever the bookstore was back then, and he bought a copy of the book. He didn't gift it to me. He wanted his shit back, but he bought a copy of the book.
Oh, okay. So he got basically a library version. Like he did it like just in case he don't give it back, it ain't sweat off my back. Because it ain't my hardback joint.
Yeah. And it's a softback, and he gave me the book. And when I tell you, I read about 5 chapters in like 2 days. And this is a long ass book. And it's got a glossary in the back. It's got maps. So I'm going back looking up the definitions of words. How do you pronounce this? Because again, fantasy, they kind of had their own language. But I'm like really digging the book. Like I'm digging them. I finished the book up and I give it back. I'm like, yo, I need book number 2. He's like, you really liked it? He's like quizzing me. I'm like, bro, I'm fucks with this. I'm talking like modern slang, but I'm like, no, I really enjoyed the book. I don't really want to scare dude off. I don't want, like, I'm trying to be like as non-angry black man as I can be and not pushy. But like,
because you're trying to speak at his level.
Yeah, like, you know what's funny? I got judged because I didn't really look like a nerd. So I played sports. I was decent at sports. I was never the coolest kid, but I was always in the mix. So like, kind of my getting into nerd stuff with actual real nerds, and I'm not saying I wasn't, but
they didn't trust your respect your. They was like, man, all right, you capping, as the young people say.
Yeah, or they got picked on and shit. So I could understand if you had been getting picked on since 2nd, 3rd grade, some random ass black dude just walk up on you, because like in high school, middle school, high school, everything kind of mixed. Like different schools came together, so. I went to Chesterfield. I don't know what school he went to, but we didn't go to school together. So it's his first time seeing me. He don't know me from Joe Blow. So anyway, we get real cool. I'm talking about like now we cool. I done read the book. He done quizzed me, and you
done got through the gang. You got through the gang. You already got through the gang.
He done introduced me to his other nerd friends. They play Dungeons and Dragons and shit. Like they nerds. I'm talking about like. We stay after school for like sports or to go to the gym and work out and shit like that. They after school in Mr. Davenport class playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like they
playing that D&D.
And I tried it. It ain't for me. It's not enough action. But
it's a lot going. Like I played Dungeons and Dragons a whole bunch of times. It's just not me. If I had to, if I went over somebody's house and they played and they like, yo, jump on in, I can do it. But I'm not.
Oh yeah, I could jump in, but it didn't really pique my interest. It was kind of slow paced, and I can read at my own pace. And reading is a lot of imagination too. So I hadn't really seen, other than the first cover of the original, which only has land and moraine on it. I didn't really. I just kind of you make people look how you look sometimes.
Yep.
And I was so. It was some white. If they described them as white, I definitely, was making them white. But it was some people. The race was kind of. I can make this person a brother, maybe, or I can make.
And you immediately did.
Yeah, so I immediately did, and it was really fucking with me when I would talk to other white people, or talk to white folks who like the books, because everybody, no matter if it described them as having slanted eyes or described them as living in the desert. Like they had them as white, and I'm like, bro, he live in the desert, and if nothing else, he's Saudi Arabian looking, like he
at the minimum,
Middle East. Like like how could you not see this? So when the TV show came out, and they had changed some of the races to update to the times, I was all for it.
Well, and before we get started review, like, have you looked and see was there any backlash within the kind of Wheel of Time community from the updating of the races, kind of like, or like kind of rainbow coalition of races?
Oh man, so it's been a lot of pushback. I belong to a little nerd group that I've been a part of for years called Dragon Mount, and Dragon Mount is an important place in the book. And dragonmount.com, you can go and, they got message boards and things like that. So I've been a part of that since the first book. I said, let me hop on. I'm on AOL, like what they talking about.
Oh, like, dang, so you've been a part of groups since AOL days.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I fully embrace the book. Robert Jordan, to me, is one of the greatest fiction fantasy authors that I've ever, read. So when I started just plowing through the books, like the books were good. And back then, you didn't really have avatars that were real pictures because there wasn't no cell phones like that for real. So your avatar was like a drawing of like a character, or like
what has the preset avatars in the
you got a bunch to pick from. Like my name on there, the dragon was called Lord of the Morning, and so that was my name on there. I was Lord of the Morning. Like, so they didn't even probably know I was black for years. I'm talking about years. They probably didn't realize I was black till like college, because I wasn't in there dropping nigga or nothing like that.
Yeah.
I'm around white folks. So you kind of, back then, code switching was definitely a thing, especially going to county school. So I'm being as white bread as I could be. I don't want to mess up with those teachers. I ain't trying to, embarrass my parents, especially my mother, who was a teacher. So I'm like, let me just be chill.
Yep.
And but the backlash was crazy when they started announcing before the show even came out. They would say, we have this actor to play this character and this actor to play that character, and the pushback from my Anglo-Saxon nerd coalition folks was upset. Why are they changing the races? And it's going to be woke and blah blah blah. And I'm like, as the books progress, times change. So like the first book is very teenager. Like the characters are young. There's not much profanity, or it's Wheel of Time for profanity.
So it's very YA. It's very YA.
Yeah, there's not much sex or anything. But as these characters grew and they went out to the world, it got very progressive. One thing I liked about Robert Jordan, he was very big on putting women in positions of power. He was very big on, even if it wasn't black and white, other countries and other races in the books being prevalent. Like, he has so many characters that get a first person like perspective. Like, it jumps around a lot if you read the books. Like, the first book alone, you'll get Rand, Perrin, Matt, Lan, Nene. Like, you'll get like some Children of Light, some people who have not been introduced in the TV show yet. The TV show skips a lot of stuff that happened in the first book, but it got the meat and potatoes correct. So I'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But
because you told me basically like George R. Martin basically took his blueprint. So it's like J.R. Tolkien, this brother that wrote this, and then then George R. Martin are kind of like the tree of your dope fantasy kind of guys.
Oh man, yeah. When Robert Jordan, before he passed away, so Robert Jordan had gotten sick several times, cancer. So he would make a couple books, take some years off, make a couple books. So the last book didn't come out. I was 30, post 30 when the last book came out. So I started reading these when I was like 15. So the last book didn't. I was like 32, I think, when the last.
And you got to think that you were already 3 or 4 books behind when you got.
I was late. Yeah, I was late when I got on. But Robert Jordan was sick and he was finishing the books. But I would always, in these little nerd discussion groups, they would always be talking about R.R. Martin. Like, he was an author that had read the books, and if you ever saw Game of Thrones, it has dragons in it.
Yeah.
Well, time has
so he's Kobe. So he's like the Kobe to Jordan, like where it's like it's this young dude named Kobe. Is that what George R. R. Martin is?
I wouldn't say that, because the books are so different. Death is treated differently. If Robert Jordan was alive now, I think maybe this book would be a little bit more. He could have really wilded out. But when he started making this, mind you, this is I think Bill hadn't even gotten hair from Monica yet. So this is like pre all that.
So this is like 1990. The first book is 1990.
Yeah, so this is Bill. This is pre-Bill. This is Sally
before
Jesse
Rodney
Raphael.
King got beat up. Like this.
Yeah, this is Sally Jesse Raphael. This is not Ricky Lake. To put that in perspective. Or this is not Jerry Springer. This is the Phil Donahue show. So
gotcha.
like even that type of TV was different back then. Like you didn't really kiss all that much on TV, on soap operas and things like that. Like things are different now. You can curse on daytime TV, and books have changed to keep up with television. Media and entertainment tends to like keep up with each other. So, man, R.R. Martin, he took everything off. He said YOLO. So he got incest and it's sex in the first chapter, murder in the first book, main characters dying early. Fantasy didn't really do that. If you think about old fantasy, Lord of the Rings, the important characters made it to the end.
Yeah. And honestly, if you think about it, Sleep, I think Game of Thrones may be the first TV show, book, movie, or anything where they just killed off a main character you followed off the gate, where you like, it was so much so that you're trained. I thought there was going to be a way that he still was going to come back. Like, because you're so trained to, you know what I'm saying? Because we're so trained as people watching it, like, oh no, that's the hero, is him. He's the hero.
Yeah. Like he threw the baby out with the bathwater. Like he wilded. So with the wheel of time, people will die. There will be death. There will be destruction. But like for the most part, if you're following along, the important people, not to say everybody ain't important, but there's certain people that you kind of know. If you read Lord of the Rings, like hey, Frodo wouldn't die. If you read The Hobbit, Bilbo wasn't gonna die.
Bilbo ain't died.
I mean, you just know. I don't care how crazy it got. Like he was like, well, he gonna be all right. Well, R.R. Martin went different. He said, no.
It's like he would have killed Frodo in the first movie.
Yeah, we taking out Ned Stark early. So I will say this: the dragon, at least the dragon as we know him, is not gonna die. But the world is super expansive. Women play a very prominent role. They didn't change that to fit today's day and times. Like Robert Jordan was already on putting women in position of power, having main characters be women. And a lot of women fans thoroughly enjoyed that. And I would think the women fans would understand how making some of these characters be people of color, i.e. Black, Asian, Latinx, whatever, would be empowering, because we don't really have that type of level of character development, or not even character development, that level of star character in fantasy.
Right. No, the representation. Like that's why I'm looking at this new George R. Martin for the Dragon show, and I'm like, oh, so they showing all of the Targaryen family with black people. Oh, because and it makes sense that they would be part black because they came from over in Essos area. And if people, I'm not nerding out with from people that know the books. From Essos is basically Africa and like your Saharan area. So why wouldn't some of them? And then it makes sense that some of them would maybe kind of intermingling like an Egypt or Morocco, where it's black and white kind of get. So it makes sense if you go back and you like, oh snap, they got dreads. Oh, so it's like you said though, it's dope when they update it to make sense. Fantasy was we don't get that much love fantasy wise. Black people don't.
No, most books are based on, honestly, truthfully, medieval Europe. Most fantasy stuff, if you look at how the countries are made up, and even the populations, it's icy up there, where if you, in Game of Thrones, for instance, the North, that looks like, Norway, Sweden, Vikings, and then you got folks in the South. I always forget my man, but he came to the town and was talking trash and fought the mountain, and then he died. But they all Spanish.
Oh, you're talking about man, I can't remember. But you're just talking about from man, I can't remember. It's so many character names, man.
There's so many characters, yeah. But
I know people gonna be in the comments. But yeah,
he fought the mountain. But they got that Italian/Spanish, swag to them. And you just got regular white folks. They from England. That's
He's more Portuguese. He's like Portuguese. You know what I'm saying?
You got your Lannisters.
Isn't that homeboy that plays I think he plays something else. Man, this is gonna drive me crazy. But keep going, Sleep.
But if you look at this map, this is a map. This is of There'll be more places, but this is the map. This more so kind of looks like a Europe type of place, a Eurasia type of situation.
Oberon,
So,
Martell, Oberon.
thank you. Good job. So, of course, in this desert region up here, they should look Persian or Arabian. Oh, I don't even know. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. They should look Middle Eastern. So I apologize for saying Arabian. That's not correct. They would look Middle Eastern, obviously. I mean, the sun's shining there. It's arid. It's the desert. But fans of the books made everybody white. And that's happened in every book. If you saw, geez Louise, a few years ago.
Oh, was it the gods? What was it? The joint with was it you thinking about? I'm thinking
I
about.
never read the books, but I saw the movies. One movie was like Catching Fire, Hunger Games.
Hunger Games, yes. Because in the books, there's supposed to be black areas, like
in the book, a character had been black the whole time, but white folks made them.
And also in Harry Potter, Hermione is supposed to be black.
Characters have been black in books, especially recently in the last 20 years, and white folks still just make them white. It could tell you. I mean,
it makes sense that Hermione would be black. You know what I'm saying? Like the way they describe her, the way they she's a muggle. It's like all these kind of things where it's like, oh, she's not pure magic, and it's like, oh no, that's a black person because they ain't gotten to this magic shit yet.
Bro, even if you look at the Bible, they say Jesus had skin the color of bronze and hair like wool. And now we got a Bee Gees looking motherfucker as Jesus. Like this nigga look like. So I mean, and I get that. You tend to when you want to make people look like you.
Yeah.
I get it. Because I make motherfuckers that's supposed to be white black all the time. So I understand.
So let's dive into the show. What are your overall thoughts on the first 4 episodes and how they related to the book and kind of the vision of the book so far?
So first 4 episodes keep really, really, I give it about an 8 out of 10 when it comes to like truthful to the books. There's a couple glaring things. They're younger in the books because typically they're always young and they have to grow. So like Perrin having a wife, that doesn't exist in the books. Like she doesn't exist at all.
So they made the so how old are they when they originally start out?
I would think 15, 16.
Oh, so they got them like 21, 22 in this.
Yeah. Egwene, just like in the TV show, had just gone through the women's circle and become a quote unquote woman. So I would think, if I based it on real life, she had gotten a period and now she has to go do she could be a part of the women's circle and she's treated like she's grown. So
we're talking about 14 then, like 13, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah, like a young teenager. So there's not much sex or anything happening in the beginning. They sneaking away to kiss or sneaking away to hold hands. So they updated that for the show, obviously, because now we would be getting into like a CW type of WB show. It'd be Dawson's Creek if they were that young. Dawson's Creek with magic. But Perrin does not have a wife in the book. So that was a huge change. Now, how they use Perrin's wife for character development, didn't have a problem with it. Like how they use that as his burden that he carries for the first half of the show. If you can change something and make it make sense, I'm okay with it.
And it pushes the character development. You're saying like their reasoning for what they're doing.
Yeah. Matt Cawthorn in the book was more of a trickster, prankster type of guy. But again, he's a kid. So he's pulling pranks and being silly and childish. Here they got him being kind of like a cheat, a thief. So they've just taken those childhood things that sometimes pranksters and troublemakers can grow up to be. So they, magnified it. Like he's not stealing people's jewelry and sending them to a peddler. Like that doesn't happen. Actually, even though his father isn't the best horse guy in town, he's pretty good, and they're not poor. Like they doing all right. If anybody's poor, it would be Rand and them. Rand and them don't live in town. Rand's mother has passed away, so his father's raising him. They live on a farm away from the town. They have to
Yeah, I mean,
travel
they
the
showed
town.
that. They showed that.
Yeah.
I mean, they showed that they lived out the way.
So they would be the ones that would be the non-traditional folks. There are other families that they introduce you to as well. Like in this one, Perrin doesn't have a family, like at all. Also, Perrin is not in the book, Perrin is not he's a blacksmith apprentice. He works for a guy named Harold Lana. They own the forge. Perrin does have like family members, like he has a mother, father, but he spends most of his time at the forge. That is accurate, but it's not his forge because he's a kid. So they age these folks. But it's weird because Rand should be the same age as them, but Rand is not married and he lives with his father. Matt's not married either, but Matt lived not only with his parents, but he got two little sisters he got to watch all the time. So it's really weird how they did the ages, because you would think all of them would be not sneaking away. But I mean, they got a little bit of they treat them like they grown. The parents leave so that Rand and Egwin can hook up, and they understand that they are a thing. And they
so the sister that was the seer for the town, I forgot what her name was.
The wisdom.
Yeah, the wisdom. Did they age her down?
Nene was always older than them.
I said, but did they age her? Like, she seemed like she's not that much older than them. Like, they seem like they 20-something. She seemed like she's 27. Like,
so I guess they would, if anything, they maybe aged her down a year or two. She was always
in her early 20s, like late 20s, maybe.
She was always a young wisdom. She was always younger than everybody.
It just aged them up where it doesn't seem, because it doesn't seem as much mentor mentee as much. It just feels like you just the older homie, not where it's like you know what I'm saying, like where it's an actual mentee age.
And that's true, but she was getting ready to actually, now that she's a woman, Egwin was about to become a wisdom apprentice.
Right.
So now it's going to go from I'm your friend to like, now you're about to be up under me for real. Because right before they did that ceremony where they dropped her in that water and she had to learn how to float and not fight the current, she was a child. So they treated her like a child. She couldn't. All the grown women in that area braid their hair when they're grown. She didn't have braids. Her hair was flowing. Once you came back with that braid, that meant that you were grown now. So now she was about to become the apprentice.
Okay.
All the main characters are around the same age except Nynaeve. Nynaeve's older. But Rand, Perrin, Matt, Egwin were all born weeks apart.
So that's part of the prophecy as well. They're born weeks apart.
Well, not necessarily. So in the book and in the TV, in the book, we kind of know who the dragon is fairly early, but because he's getting the most chapters. Whoever's getting the most chapters, you kind of figure out, okay, he's the main character a lot. It's going to be him. But on the TV show, they throw out a swerve because they say that the dragon can be a woman, whereas in the book, it was always going to be a man. They didn't really, they didn't gender swap. If you died as a man, you came back as a man for the most part. So Luz Theron Telemann, and if I'm mispronouncing it, it's because I'm Black and I gave up on that glossary a long time ago, was the dragon. To give the basic story, it's a time of peace. Everything is serene. Everything is awesome. The Aes Sedai are men and women. And when they do magic, or it's not magic, when they perform miracles with Sadin and Sadar, working together, it makes fantastic things. There's no famine. There's no war. Everything is great. And somebody discovers a power in a mountain that's even stronger than the true source. The true source it has two halves, Sadin and Sadar. So they get to digging in there. And when they dig in there, it explodes. But that power is not the power they think it is. It unleashes greed, murder, it's like opening up Pandora's box. And it plunges the world into darkness. And it's not instant, but as it spreads, war starts. And that's the Dark One's prison. So the Dark One is like the devil figure. He's been locked away. So much time has passed since he's been locked up, they forgot that he even existed. it's not
because
even
no
an
one
old
passed
wives'
that
tale.
down that he existed. So it's like that oral tradition of the devil existing got kind of erased.
Yeah. So the wheel of time is just like it sounds. It's a wheel of time. So you start here and it kind of goes around and eventually it's going to get back here. By the time it's like here, you don't even remember what was happening up there. And your soul could have been born and died several times in that turning of the wheel. So they don't remember what death and murder and stuff is. And now they've unleashed it. So after years of this, and I'm paraphrasing because some of this stuff is not discussed in the first book either, the men and women decide that they need to stop it. Like, we need to attack the Dark One. Now, the dragon is the strongest Aes Sedai, man or woman. So he's the strongest, he's the leader, he's that guy. But the women have a leader too. And then lose is like LEWS. So I say lose. I could be, like I said, mispronouncing it.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. He's like, we need to go right now and attack. The Dark Ones are going to be there. We can either kill them or push them back in and close it up. But we need to go. Because the war's been going on for years now. A lot of people have died. Like, it's all bad. And the women Aes Sedai are like, hold on, bro. We fighting this war on several fronts. The Dreadlords and Forsaken, those are the magic people that work for the devil. So Forsaken are like the highest generals. They were Aes Sedai who switched sides. Some of them switched for whatever reason. And Dreadlords are like magic people too, but they up under them. So they're not the strongest magic people. They're kind of in the middle. And I'm using magic because it just sounds really easy. Because it's magical. They like, we fighting a war. We trying to protect these cities. If we take all of our forces there and this fails, we lose everything because we got to take everybody there. Mm-hmm. So they have a big argument, and this happens in the show eventually. They do a flashback. They have a huge argument, and the guy's like, "Fuck it, I'm taking my guys. We finna go." So they go and they fight the devil dude, and they win. They don't kill him, but they reseal him in the boar. So the boar is like a place where they locked him in. They fixed his prison. But the devil dude, he's a godlike figure. He's just evil. So he's strong enough to taint, to send poison basically into their half of the magic. Since no women were there, he couldn't get the whole magic pool. He just got the men's side. This makes the men, as they use the magic, eventually go insane. And because some of them are stronger than others, this takes a long time, like 100 years, for everybody to go crazy before they actually realize, oh my God, the men are going crazy because the magic.
Oh, so people thought everything was sweet for like 100 years. Like, oh, we defeated them, we back to good.
Not even, because some people went crazy instantly. Okay. Some people, it was instant crazy. We won, woohoo. Bro, why you shooting at me? Like, it was okay. like what's going on? And as people would be born, and then they get to a certain age and they realize that they are a magic user, once they start training, then they would go insane. So, like, the next group of dudes, they're like, well, all the other dudes is crazy. Thank God we got this new batch of dudes that know magic. But they would go crazy too. And the women didn't understand why. So eventually they started gentling magic users of the men. And that's blocking them from the power. Like, you can block it. So you take it away. Like, it's gone. They can't get to it no more. They can sense it, but it's almost like there's a wall there. Like a wall of, no matter how hard you punch against the wall, you're never going to get through. Think the Great Wall of China. If you're a man just punching that wall, you're not getting through with your fist. So this dilutes the magic eventually. And you get to the time now where there's only women. The red Aes Sedai hunt down men who can do magic. Yep. So that they can take it from them.
And we saw that in the beginning of the first episode.
Yep. So Masrim, Logain, I always said Logian, but Logain.
You heard them say it, then you're like, oh, that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah. Logain, there is a prophecy, basically. Like, there's certain things that the dragon has to do to prove he's the dragon. And if he can do those things, eventually the countries, kings, and Aes Sedai are supposed to like respect and follow him. If he can do these things, that means that he the guy. So Logain is on the journey to doing those things. Now, in the beginning, they're going to try to stop you because you could be a false dragon. You could just be a crazy magic dude.
And we saw that on the first 4 episodes. The brother that they had captured and took into the camp.
Correct. So,
and he was able to build up and like, I mean, thinking about it, since you said that, thinking about how was he able to get so many troops so fast? Is it that the men wanted to believe it that there was a dragon that they just got on board, kind of like he got to be it because we've been waiting for it.
So what's crazy is we live in a world in real life where men have most of the power.
Mm-hmm.
Due to misogyny and toxic masculinity, whatever you want to call it, like men are typically heads of households or heads of state or hold positions, right or wrong. Well, because men have been going crazy because of their stuff is poison, the women in a lot of places have the power. Like, even though in that town there is a mayor and he has people who works for him in the Two Rivers, there's also a women's circle. Mm-hmm. And the women's circle are typically the wives of the people in charge. So most times the women's circle get their way because they just talk to their husband. And everybody knows happy wife, happy life. Yeah. So, their decisions are even being impacted by the women. And then when all the magic users that can use it legally are women, a lot of men feel emasculated or feel like they don't have control.
Oh, so you feel that it's kind of similar to how Kevin Samuels is for these young dudes out here right now. Like, he's like a dragon for him. Like, I'm following him now. Like, let's go.
Anytime somebody's strong enough to make it past and take over a town or take over a city, the men are so quick to fall in line because they're like, well, it's got to be him. And all they're thinking is, well, he gonna give us some power too, because we tired of the women running everything. So he's able to get an army fairly quickly. Now, I'm sure when he first started doing magic, folks in town was like, get him out of here, because the Aes Sedai are gonna come, and whatever country you in has a king or queen, and they're gonna send their army too. So if it's just my block, they like, get this dude out of here.
Or so how did he? They never really went. So how was he able to kind of maneuver for this long without being kind of put up on the radar?
He was able to. I mean, it's not even what he did was commendable. But there have been stronger false dragons or stronger candidates for the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
But he was in a country that didn't have a strong king.
Okay.
And they didn't, and he actually came to attack the king after he built his army. Whereas typically
that's the scene we see where he at the castle, where he attacked the castle.
But what made him different is he really thought he was the dragon, and he wasn't doing it for evil intentions, which is why he didn't kill the king. If you remember that scene,
mm-hmm.
The voices are talking to him in his head like, kill him, and he like, no, I will heal him, and he heals the dude, and the king is so taken aback that the false dragon, now he's like, oh, he got to be the guy. He didn't kill me, he healed me, I'm following him to the death. Like, this is my guy now. So, because he wasn't evil, he really wanted to just fulfill the prophecy. He's like, I'm going to do these things, I'm going to knock them out, and then the world would know that I'm the dragon. So he's really just kind of moving.
So he's doing the protocol of like all the things they said. Like you said, you have to do these things to be considered the dragon. He's trying to hit all those different key benchmarks.
Yeah, and he's very early in the things. But he like, getting a ruler to support you is one of the things. It doesn't say what ruler. You just got to get a ruler to have your back. So he's already, that's a big one right there. I mean, it's early on the list of things. Like, there's much bigger things to do. But convincing an entire country that you the guy, that's pretty big. Like, that's a big deal. So he wasn't coming from a place of evil. Evil exists. Even though they locked the devil away, once Pandora's box was open, it was open. So envy, murder, greed, all that stuff didn't get locked up. They just locked up the dude. So everything that he unleashed, once it was out, it was out. So we're gonna get back to the first book. Sorry, that was just a little background.
Yeah, no. This stuff is like, man, I think people need to understand it. So this stuff, you broke me down for like an hour and a half and gave me a great primer for the show.
So we don't meet Logain in the book, but we do meet him. Oh, not that early in the book, but we do meet him in the TV show fairly early. The main character for the TV show purposes is Moraine Sedai. Moraine Sedai is a part of the Blue Asia,
which is the spy.
They deal with like politics and spies and things like that. They out in the world. We'll break down the Asians later, but they outside. Back in the day, when the Ale crossed over into our part of the world or into the regular part of the world from the desert, there's a huge battle. The Ale want to kill somebody. We'll get into that later. And they kill him, but all the other countries are like against. If they can kill this king, they can kill us too. So now the whole world, the whole known world, is against them, including the Aes Sedai. So they are battling, getting very close to the White Tower because they like, hey, we got to kill them. Like, hey, they tripping, they got to die too. So during the battle, and this happens later in the season as well, Aiel woman, because they have women warriors too, is they're pregnant. She has a baby, and that baby is to be the dragon reborn. Like that, it's like a huge deal. So Moraine is working as I think she was a novice, maybe, and accepted. She's a young magic user. She's not full blown yet. Mm-hmm. She's like an apprentice magic user. And the person that she's apprentice under stops mid-sentence and says, rejoice, rejoice, the dragon is born. And it's some bad stuff too, like, because the dragon's going to break the world, possibly. And she kills over and dies. Now, there's 2 apprentices in there, and they are afraid to tell the other magic women, because the magic women are finna go try to find this dude now. Like, the dude was born down the street. Like, he outside the walls. He's not in the city, but he's very close. If you could find a baby, that's probably the baby. So they're like, we can't say nothing, because if they kill the dragon or take his magic, the world's not going to survive. You need a dragon. Like, he is important. So they've been keeping this at the hip for like 15, 20 years, like for a long time, about 20 years. They just kept it, they talked about it with each other. They didn't tell nobody else. They're like, when we get whatever we're going to find them and protect them and teach them as best we can. Keep them from messing up the world, but still let him do his thing. Mm-hmm. So Moraine has been looking for this dragon for years. She's been going from town to town, city to city, like, looking for.
So Moraine found this out because she was an understudy of the 2 people that knew.
No. She was one of the people. She was the only one person knew. She was one of the understudies.
Right. Yeah. So she was under the person that knew. Like, yeah, this person's like, yo, I know where they at. I know what it is with this.
It wasn't even. It was just like, yo, the dragon is born, and she died. Like she went into a trance because she can see the future. Like that was one of her powers.
Okay, she's similar to a character we meet in the second 4 episodes. I mean, the 4 through 8 episodes. Not even
her. Like, this person that you're talking about can like see auras around people, but she can't necessarily tell you what they mean. Like, she can see. This woman straight up had a vision and spit it out. Like, hey, he born. Like, she wasn't nowhere near. She couldn't see him. Like, she in the crib. She with some apprentices, so she not out fighting. They inside the city. Ain't no TV, ain't no phone.
They training, they doing whatever.
Whatever she had them doing. And she stops mid-sentence, goes into this trance, spits out this information, and falls over and dies. Like, the image was so strong, it killed her.
So, but Maureen is the only one that saw this.
No. Suan Sanchez, Suan, the Karen Amerlin seat.
So we had to stop this right here. There was so much that we talked about in this episode, me and Sleepy, about Will and Time. We split it up. So you're gonna be getting a session on Wednesday with a little bit more. We're gonna dive in more into the episodes. This is a great primer for you to get to understand a little bit more about Will and Time. And we will be back with you on Wednesday as we break down episodes 1 through 4 of Will